We could start off with any grain, but today we're going to start off with wheat, whatever the container is. Fill it up about 1/3. Okay. We put the grain in here. Now the grain is an agricultural product. It's got dirt, it's got microorganisms on it. So we're going to rinse it off. We rinse it. You can imagine how you would do this, but how I do it is like this. And I'm going to rinse it 3 times, just to be sure, because we're going to soak this grain overnight. And in soaking it overnight, if there's a lot of yeast or bacteria on the grain, it will ferment in the water and spoil our whole process. We don't want any bacteria or yeast eating up the potential for nourishing you. Where we live, our tap water is pretty good. And this water actually comes from a well. So I'm going to fill it right up to the top. Then I'm going to put it in the fridge. Okay, now as you can see, we started with 1/3 of wheat, and now we have almost 3/4 because it soaked up water. Some of the nutrients from the wheat have actually moved into the water. What I'm going to do is save that, because that's some good nutrients there. It's very good. You want to try some? What does that taste like?
Like rice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've had that before.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Okay.
We make it in Korea too.
Oh, out of rice?
Out of rice.
Yeah, probably the same thing.
Pretty good.
So I'm going to go back to the sink now. And I'm going to rinse this off again. You know, I said this is unleavened bread. Leavened bread is bread in which you actually add microorganisms, as if there actually somehow some benefit to that. Okay, so I'm going to leave that right there for the day. And now I want you to see something very specific about this. Put it in this dish here. Alright, so now, something I want you to notice, on the end of each one of these grains is this little white clump of sprout. Part of that is going to become stem, part is going to become root. It becomes a vegetable. Right now, it is very embryonic. It's a kind of state of existence right now, which is like a stem cell state of existence, where it could be anything you want it to be almost. For this next step of making sprouted grain unleavened bread, we're going to use this blender. Now you don't need a fancy blender, as you can see. Okay, put that on high speed, liquefy. So now I have this fine strainer basket, and I'm going to just pour this right in there. Okay, now this action is hard to teach. You have to kind of learn how to do this without making a mess. So that's been straining for a while. Now if you wanted a little finer straining, I'm just going to take this nylon mesh, which is a very, very fine strainer, put it in this colander, or over this colander like that, whichever it is. But I'm going to put that in there, a little finer. Okay. I call this mother's milk because that's what it is. It's from your mother, the earth. Amazing. You want to try some?
Wow. That's really good. That's really good. That's really amazing. What?
We got a quart of milk and we got bread dough. I'm going to take this and I'm going to squeeze it and press more milk out into the fine strainer because we want all the milk, and we want this what's in the basket here to be dough consistency. We're squeezing all the milk out, not all of it, but most of it. Okay, so I'm going to put that in this bowl. And we have bread dough. Let's make a waffle. I'm going to take a chunk of that, put it on there, close it. Okay, so it's been about 5 minutes. And voila, we have one unleavened bread. Unleavened bread, staff of life. There's various things here that you could put on a waffle. You could just eat it the way it is. This is simple butter, and it's made with 2 ingredients, olive oil and salt. Olive oil and sea salt. You can spread it, and it's it doesn't taste like butter, but it is a kind of a buttery experience, and it melts almost instantly. You can put some spinach in here, or some basil and a little hummus, make a sandwich. Or, this is just 100% raisins and a little bit of well water made put in the blender and made into a nice jam. Okay? There you go. Have your pick. Okay. Now, we could take this dough and put it in the oven and bake it in a loaf. I'm not going to do that, but you can imagine that you can do that. Let's suppose you're in a hurry, you know, and you want some bread, and you want some unleavened bread. Because by the time you're done with this video, you're going to want unleavened bread. You're going to prefer unleavened bread. Now, you may not actually follow through, but at the end of the movie, like a lot of things in your life, you get all these like inspirations, like, I gotta run. I'm gonna start running tomorrow, or I'm gonna start, you know, doing yoga. And then months later you think, whatever happened to that idea? Here is some organic whole wheat flour. We have some organic oats. Okay, so I'm going to put some of our nice well water in this bowl. I'm saying a prayer right now while I'm doing this. I put in some oats, wheat. Now I'm just mixing this together, and it looks like I might have the right amount of, no, it's going to be a little wet. So I'm going to add a little more of something. So I'm adding some cornmeal, or not cornmeal, corn flour. Cornmeal is a little coarser. At this point, what is conventionally done in Western civilization is a big chunk of yeast will go in here. Why is that a problem for me? You might ask. You want to ask me that?
Why is that a problem for you? Wait, let me ask again. Why is that a problem for you?
Good question. If you were to line up all forms of life, and this was man, supposedly the highest form of animal, and this is a tree, supposedly the highest form of plant. And somewhere, we'll call these plants and these animals. Well, there's no hard line between plants and animals. There's this middle ground here, which is fungus, yeast, and mold. Okay? So, the line is still here. So, some of these guys are on this side of the line, and some are on that side of the line. Now, yeast is on this side of the line, on the animal side of the line. Yeast is nourished by the same things that nourish you, and it has the same waste products that you have. So if you put yeast in this bread dough, it's going to eat the nutrients that are there for you. Well, if the yeast eat the nutrients that were in your staff of life, what happens to them? Well, they become waste products. And one of the waste products is carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide comes out in little bubbles. You can consider it like the farts of yeast. These are little plant fiber brushes, and they have little olive oil or coconut oil on them. I forget what I did this time. But I'm just going to brush that on lightly, like that. And I'm going to take a chunk of that, put it on there, close it. Look at them like little tiny cows, and you're putting them in the bread. Millions of little tiny cows in the bread. And they're eating the nutrients in the bread. And they're going pee, going poo. So you're eating something that was bread, but is now bread that has been digested and nutrients consumed out of it by these millions of little cows, and their waste products excreted into the dough, and their little bubbles, they're like little farts from the yeast, is making the bread rise, and all their excrement is giving it the flavor and the aroma that we can associate with bread. So you're eating cow manure and you're eating the cow. Now this might not be terribly important to omnivores or othervores, but to someone who wants to be vegetarian, especially wants to be vegan, if you buy this bread with yeast, or if you use nutritional yeast, it's like eating cow manure and a cow. And there's no way around that. It's just true.